handmade assembly, and now here I am, and I'm so absolutely honored, and thank you so much. It's been a space where, having a handmade assembly has just been a space where my favorite makers and artists and thinkers have gathered, and now it's so sweet. So, yeah, I'll just dive right in. My name's Larry Weyand. I'll just tell you a little bit about myself. So this is my thoughts, peeling the sticker off an overripe pear. So we just wanted to show you my pear, my overripe pear, and my little sticker peeling off of it, because there's something about that that's just so yeah. I'm from Montreal originally. Part of me is from Montreal, and one side of the family is from Montreal, right there in DG. And my dad is from this little spot in Maine, in the United States, called Bedford. Anyways, this is important because, well, you'll see in the rest of my talk. I wanted to start off by talking about oral history. And to do that, I will have to address a little bit of a darker time for Larry. So this was a time where my anxiety was kind of like threat level midnight. And this was right in the midst of my MFA, which I feel a lot of people probably feel like that as well. So I was 2 out of 3 years into my MFA, I was just feeling completely depleted, uncreative. I couldn't look at art anymore. I was feeling so incredibly anxious. I felt like a stranger within my own community. I was just lost. I just felt disjointed from everything that was happening around me. I was very stressed, obviously, and I was just lacking a connection to the rest of the art world that I was in, and I just was like, what is happening? This is ridiculous. Yeah, I just didn't quite know what to do, and at that time I was doing my MFA in Montreal. I was like, I need to get out of here. I need to change something that's going on. And I had a buddy who knew a buddy who knew of the opening, the position that opened up on Fogo Island in a museum. And I just like, what the heck? I'm just going to go out there and see what happens. And I was so fed up with making art, I was like, I'm not going to bring any art supplies. I'm just going to go to Newfoundland and I'm just going to work this job for the summer and we'll see what happens when I come out of it. I just was like, just fed up. And I went there. So if you don't know much about Fogo Island, I mean, you probably do because it's quite, Fogo Island has a reputation. So this is Newfoundland, and then Fogo Island is like off of Newfoundland. So already getting to Newfoundland is hard, and you really have to be dedicated to just want to go to that province. And then once you're in that province, to get to Fogo Island is even more dedication because it's an hour-and-a-half ferry ride from the island. And it's a beautiful, lovely, lovely island, but there's not like a ton of retail stores going on there. There's like a foodland. That's where all the hot goss neighborhood happens. Like you go to foodland, learn what's going on in the community. A couple convenience stores. And then the Fogo Island Inn, right? But yeah. But I wasn't really part of that whole canon. I was just, doing my own thing at the museum that was there. And yeah, I got there, and like I said, super, super anxious and just not knowing what was going on with my life. And I was unpacking my bag, like taking my socks, putting them in the, my underwear drawer and whatnot. And then I look in my bag and I was like, oh, the rug hook is in here. I don't remember packing that. And I had done some rug hooking a little bit in the past, and it has been something that was in my family for a while. And I had learned to rug hook, but it wasn't really part of my practice. I was doing vastly different things, and I was like, that's weird. Like, I have no idea how that got in there. It's like, well, all right, I'll just put it on coffee, which my husband roasts in the basement. And here's where he roasts his coffee. So it's like, right on, right on. So I went down there, and he had these giant burlap bags filled with coffee beans. I was like, okay, all right, I see what's going on here. So I just went along, and was working, and then I discovered this little place down the road called Winds and Waves. And I went into Winds and Waves and found the loveliest group of women that were working there, and people, like wonderful textile artists. And I come across, this is Winds and Waves, and then I come across this giant shelf of Briggs Little yarn. And I was like, okay. And then all the stars aligned, and I was like, well, I guess I'll just give rug hooking another go then, because there's really nothing else here in terms of art supplies. So I was like, we'll just see what happens. And I started rug hooking. And the first thing that I did was this little Spam can and a little Spam loaf, which are about yay big, each one of them. And I was like, wow, that's amazing. Okay. So I was like, oh, there's something here. There definitely is. And I was listening to this video the other day of Dr. Gabor Matt, and he was talking about in the context of addiction, but it applied to me directly. And he said, well, we have to start shifting our questions from what is wrong with you, like what is wrong with me, to or what happened to you, so that you can gain a better understanding of what it is that you're grappling with, why it is that you're feeling this way, and like how you can go about understanding the reasons why you've become the person that you've become. So this has brought me to the process of autoethnography, which is so important to this body of work that you'll keep seeing in students. And I started investigating that very, very deeply. And to do that, I relied on memory of conversations I've had about my different family members, specifically my grandparents. And I started having conversations with my parents, my aunts, my uncles, and I really wanted to know more about my grandparents' life and the good and the bad things that they had lived with, and how these different things have trickled down from generation to generation and have started to were affecting me during that time. So I just want to start out with a tiny little disclosure that some of these things that I'll be talking about with my grandparents, yeah, it's the good and the bad, and I'm always kind of weary, oh, maybe I shouldn't mention that about them, but these are things that they were openly talking about within the context of their own lives to family members and to other people, and that they weren't shy from sharing these things. So I've asked a lot of my family members, like, do you think it's okay if I talk about Grammy this way? And they're like, yeah, because this is how she went about her life and lived her life. So I just wanted to share that. So this is my Grammy, my grandmother on my American side of the family. So she, all my grandparents have passed away, unfortunately, but yeah, so this is my Grammy. She was a cat lover. She loved to needlepoint. She also made rugs. She had quite a flair for accounting. She always wanted to be an accountant. She always told me this. She's like, if I didn't marry your grandpa, I would have been an accountant. I guess. She was a true Mainer. She was from Maine and loved the East Coast, loved the beach. She was also an alcoholic and chain smoked Lucky Strike cigarettes. And yeah, that's my Grammy. Oh, that's a bit fuzzy, but that's okay as a slide. That's my grandpa. So that's her husband. He was a heart surgeon that died of a heart attack, which is so ironic, but it is what it is. And I like to describe him as someone who really loved domestic bliss, I guess. He loved to cook, loved to garden, but he didn't really get a lot of opportunities to do that because he was working really hard all the time. But he made well loved in his community. And as you all know, in America, healthcare is not free, but he would go out of his way to visit families and treat them for free a lot of the time. So, oh, Grandpa! All right. This here is my grand-papa on my Quebec, my French Quebec side of the family. So he was pretty cool dude. He owned a maple syrup farm. He was also a union leader. He created this whole union for agriculturalists in the area. He loved to play cards and would always cheat at cards. He also owned a motel, which I have to show you because it's just so lovely, the Rustic Motel in Chateauguay. And he was also bipolar, which was a bit difficult because back in that time, they didn't really know how to treat bipolar disorders, so the only way that they really knew how to go about it was to administer electroshock therapy. So yeah, he had to go through that a lot, which was really hard. Yeah. And then this is my grandmama. Still my French grandmother. She worked for a number of years sewing fur coats. She was the textile artist extraordinaire. I've learned most of the techniques that I know now from her. So she taught me how to knit, how to sew, how to embroider. She taught me how to weave. She would weave fabrics and then make coats for her children out of the fabrics that she had woven. Ridiculous. She has a real big sweet tooth, which is great because she married a man who owned a maple syrup farm. She was one of 18 siblings, and she's a survivor of childhood sexual abuse, which has caused her to have a lot of anxiety throughout her life. And what I found most interesting about my grandmother is that she used a lot of textile arts and textile-based processes to cope with a lot of the issues that she had been dealing with. Her and her two sisters would get together and make quilts all the time, and it was just her two sisters were also survivors of childhood sexual abuse, so it was a real good space for them to be able to create together, to make together, to gather, to share, and to cope. Yeah. Okay. So what I had done, I had taken all these interviews that I had done with my family members and my aunts and my uncles, and to get a better sense of my grandparents. And I always found that, whenever I wanted to do more of these investigations, I'd say like, tell me about Grammy. And it was this weird thing because they were like, what do you want me to say about Grammy? I don't know what to say about Grammy. So I love food, so it just came naturally to me to make a meal for the people that I was interviewing and share a meal with them. And it just so happened that all of us love food, I guess, also, and that all of these little conversations started arising around a meal, but also about different foods that my grandparents had eaten, had prepared. Yeah. So, which brings me to my second point, which is food iconography. And I think that there's something just so evocative and that you can encapsulate into different kinds of foods that are being experienced by people. And it really conjures up perfect sentiments, at least for me, as to what kinds of traumas have been happening during that time that my family members were working through. So, yeah. So, yeah, I mean, if you just think of an aspic jello mold, right, like there's something like so congealed and like there's a tension in there that really was very evocative. And this is like my Grammy's go-to quick, like impressive meal, like aspics, like ugh. And like Miracle Whip as well. Like there's just, I mean, yeah, there's a lot of tensions in there that I find fascinating. Same with Spam, and I can't believe it's not butter as well. It has that like, promise of like thin, perfect body image, but like in this like fat of I don't know what it is really. Maple syrup just is just I don't know, something nostalgic about that. And the baby bells as well. That the cheese anxiety, where I don't know if it's the anxieties caused by me eating the cheese or if I'm eating the cheese because of the anxiety, or both, I don't know. But I really feel that that is really encapsulated very well in the Baby Bell. And the Ruffles potato chips goes without saying, right? And the bashkiri, which is like my grandmama's cheese anxiety. So, I mean, all of these things really come together so well, and the way that these foods are presented or packaged are experienced by us, and so forth. So what I ended up doing for this project is that I took the oral history. I hadn't any audio recordings of them. I just diligent note taking, and then I took those diligent notes and processed whatever information I had taken into creative writing. I say creative writing, but it's really just transcribing into a more legible format. And I combined that with the storied foods and the storied objects that had come through, with this sense of using rug cooking as healing for me, and the act of making it as a coping mechanism or a way to cope with whatever I was experiencing. Just gonna grab some. All right. Okay. So yeah, I mean, if you've seen the exhibition already, so you've seen the product of what all of this has entailed, right? So yeah, I just was starting to really find a lot of meaning in this fluffy craft. So what I did is I made these sets. Well, it's 2-dimensional and 3-dimensional rugs. And the 2-dimensional rugs that I've done, the smaller ones, there's 4 of them, and they each represent the last memories that I have of my grandparents, of each grandparent. So they're a little like last memory of Larry of these grandparents. And then the runner, the big blue one that's in the gallery, is my self-portrait. I don't like to call it a self-portrait, but it's a Larry rug. And then there's some 3-dimensional objects that are around the gallery as well. So I'll just kind of run through them. So this is my coma mom. This is my Grammy. This is just a detail of my kalpapa. My baby dolls. I just find them so great. They were the last ones I made, and I found that I could, after I had completed one, I was able to grab it and hold it and like put it up to my face and cry into it. And it was just such a release, and it was so lovely and nice. And all of them have that just embedded within them. Yeah, this is my Kleenex box. My Miracle Whip. Morgan Salt. My Schlitz cans. My Spam, this one I couldn't bring because it was too large. It's the size of like so it's the loaf. Wonder bread, yeah. And what I was really able to do was to work out all of these little traumas that had trickled down from generation to generation. And I just, these are all hand hooked. So each loop, as I was doing it and repeating loop after loop after loop, it helped me to contemplate and to help break the repetition and behavioral patterns that have been passed down from generation to generation, at least for me. I was truly able to heal. I came out of this project feeling completely healed. And I was able to have conversations with my family that previously had been a little bit difficult for me to have. And I was able to do that. I would bring my baby bells and then pass them to my aunt and be like, tell me about Kalama. And then we'd hold our baby bells. And it was just, there was something about that just amplified the human connection between us. And it wouldn't have worked, right, if I had presented this painting and then like, tell me about my grandmother, right? Like, it was just something that wasn't tangible enough to be able to do that with. Yeah. had this wonderful, wonderful experience. I was worried that this would be too much of a personal project and no one would be able to relate or be able to understand what I was all about. And I had exhibited, just go back, this one. I had exhibited this one at Eastern Edge, which is the Artist Run Center in St. John's. And I was just kind of hovering over it, like making sure no one was stepping on it. I was like holding a beer and eyeballing it. And this person, now I know them, they're fantastic. This person comes up and just kind of sits, they didn't know that I was the artist. I just like shook my head and said, wow, this really reminds me of my alcoholic grandmother in the last few years of her life. And I was like, do you want a hug? And we sat there and talked about our common experience for the better part of an hour, just kind of hovered over this rug. So that was, I was like, this is exactly what I want to be doing as an artist. This is fantastic. So yeah, and I absolutely love rug hooking, just for its potential to hold different narratives, and it allows me to take control of my own narrative. And I was able, through my final rug, the Larry rug, the big blue rug, I was able to take control of my own narrative and just put in all of what I had been feeling and came out of it with like a tangible piece of like my trajectory, my emotional trajectory. And it's like, wow, this is so fascinating. All right, so that's that for that install shot. And this is my, I can't believe it's not butter. It's pretty large as well. It's like really heavy. I stuffed it with the heaviest clothes that I had. It's large. It's like a body laying there. Okay. So, within all that, I was just really curious about how rug hooking had been used as a tool, or just fiber arts in general, but more specifically rug hooking, had been used as a tool to strengthen communities and build resilience in perhaps communities that are a little bit disjointed from the rest of big metropolis cities. So I was really looking into the history of rug hooking in Newfoundland as it relates to the Granville Mission. So I'm not sure how familiar you are with the Granville Mission, but so rug hooking has just been a tradition in Newfoundland that, whenever people aren't busy fishing or, doing all the other millions of things that they were doing during that time just to survive, there was always kind of a dip in the winter season where there was just nothing else that you can do, and the women would sit and collect all these little scraps of fabric, whatever was laying around, whatever was, couldn't be used or reused or repurposed, and they would take them and hook them into mats just to keep the floors warm because it's just so cold. And it was something that every woman knew how to do very well. And when Dr. Granville came into those communities, he started noticing that and was like, wow, this is great. I think that we can make this work somehow so that we can ship these rugs out to really wealthy people in New England and America, and create some form of income for these women who had previously not been able to earn their own money. And he went out and did that and created the Granville Mission. And that's Granville University, named after Dr. Granville in Corner Brook. So yeah, so these are just some examples of the silk stocking mats that were made during the Granville time, early 1900s, mid-1900s. So these were all made with silk stockings. So what they would do is that they would get the wealthy people who were purchasing the mats to donate their silk stockings to these communities, and they would cut them up into strips and hook them into these beautiful rugs, and then they would sell the rugs back to them. Anyways, and yeah, they're so fascinating, right? And it really helped a lot of the women in those communities to gain some form of financial independence. Right on, okay. And then I was conducting my own research too while I was in Newfoundland. After that that time in Fogo Island, I was just like, this province is amazing. I'm just gonna stay here and see what happens. So I've just been in Newfoundland for the past couple of years now, and yeah, it's just a great place. So I've been doing different residencies in different little pockets of the province. So I've been all over Newfoundland, and what I find so fascinating is that each region has a rug cooking guild, where all the women there are super keen on keeping the tradition of rug cooking alive and well and vibrant. And I have gone to several of these meetings in different regions, and they are the best, the best. So it's just the gathering of the loveliest women with the loveliest stories. And I mean, winters are rough. Like, I'm not gonna lie, they're rough in Newfoundland, and this mobilizes them once a week, come together. They have the best baked goods there I have ever tasted in my life, and we eat baked goods, and we drink wine, and we gossip, and we really break the social isolation that can easily come during the winter months in Newfoundland, still today. And these women are like, yeah, I just kind of stay inside for most of the week, and then I come up for the rug cooking guild, and that's where all the hot tea gets, I don't know, it's just this great, it's wonderful. So it is about the craft, yes, but it is about crafting together and crafting as a community and being able to share and our experiences and talk about like everything that we're going through during that week that's on our minds, right? Like a lot of, I have this thing on my neck, I don't know if it's like cancer, and then we're like, oh, let me see, I don't know, it's just like, no, I don't think it is, let me Google it, and it's like, I don't know, it's just this really great space where everyone is so open to sharing and just being with each other in this very positive way. Yeah, great for water. All right. So I had also, when I was in St. John's, I was doing some work at the Naomi Center, which is, you heard it from my bio, but it's an emergency shelter in St. John's, Newfoundland for women aged 16 to 30. Wonderful, wonderful organization, the loveliest people. And I was there doing weekly classes, just being there and having materials out on the table. We did a lot of rug cooking, just because it is a craft that a lot of people are familiar with, and they've seen their nan do it, are interested, like, oh, I want to do that, my nan did that, So we did do a lot of rug cooking, and it just provided the space for these women to momentarily suspend all of their problems for a little bit and just be there, eat cookies, and like giggle. And that's what I've been finding a lot with this craft. It's just like, it really lifts the weight off of your shoulders. Yeah. So currently, I'm doing a residency at the Rooms Provincial Art Gallery in St. John's, and I'm just doing it now, and I had the absolute honor of digging into their archives of hooked rugs, which was an amazing experience. They have one of the largest collection of hooked rugs I've ever seen, and it's just fascinating. And I've just been rattling through all of them just to try to see if there's any rugs that I connect with, and just seeing how if there's any of them that are like very narrative-based rugs, which was part of it. And that's what I don't know. There's something, about rug cooking that makes you take charge of your own narrative in a way that no other medium has been able to do for me. So I've been looking at the work of, this one is Heather Goodchild. So, also, I'm just gonna plug in my show. At the end of my residency at the Rooms, which is it ends in mid-December, there'll be an exhibition called Loops to Live By, which will be featuring many textile artists, rug cookers of Newfoundland and the eastern provinces as well. But I've just been fascinated by a couple of these that I'll show with you today that really explore this idea of like reinterpretation of narrative thoughts. So this is Heather Goodchild. I love her, rats are amazing. And she is really keen on exploring rituals and ritualistic behaviors and rehashing that into this kind of mythical world. So these are just a few of her rugs that I've just been boggling at. I also have been fascinated by Sister Anne. So she, when you read her biography, it says that she's a reformed showgirl, which I find fascinating. She is a cancer survivor. She beat cancer in 1958, and that's really when she started rug hooking after that whole cancer battle situation. And she's made over 1,000 rugs, and all of the profits of selling these rugs have gone to fund and help out troubled girls in trouble during that time. And I just find them absolutely visually striking. Like, she uses these psychedelic colors and funky patterns, and I couldn't get a good image of the one that I really wanted to show you, but it will be exhibited at the room, so if you're in Newfoundland in December, go check it out. It's this weird tree with all these creatures coming out of it. I don't know, it's just so, I'm really interested in this idea of the fantastical and how it's being translated into these rugs. Yeah, I know, she's amazing. And then the last artist that I was really taken by is Nancy Edel. She was diagnosed with a non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, but she'd been cooking for a while for that. But a lot of her rugs explore the narrative possibilities of the medium, and just to express dreamlike qualities that approach themes of feminism and sexuality, and in her later years, death. So, yeah, these are just some of the rugs that I was just like, I need to share this with the room. They're wonderful. Yeah. So these are the artists that are going to be exhibiting with me. So it's a really stacked bill, like really great artists. I don't know, I don't want to plug my show too much, but it's going to be really amazing. A lot of these rugs won't ever come out of the archives from the rooms because they don't ever really come out of the archives, and the curator I'm working with was really like, let's do this, let's like get right in there, let's explore these themes together and create this like really breathtaking exhibition. So yeah, it's going to be from December to June 2020, so it's a big chunk of time to go to Newfoundland and see it. Like, I can't stress this enough, like, you have such a really wonderful time there, so like really. And then I guess I'll leave you with my Pear again for questions and so on. But I also wanted to mention, I don't like announcing this as me doing a performance, but I always love being in the space where my pieces are during the opening, and I love oral history and storytelling. So if at any point you come across a piece and you're like, there's a story there and I want to hear it, I would be more than happy to share the stories of what these pieces mean within my family. And I'm more than happy to do that at any point during this evening. So just flag me down and I can tell you about Miracle Whip and Wonder Bread. And that's all I have for you today. Thank you so much. It did. Yes, yours. Yeah. So a lot of the pieces are on fluttered coffee bean bags. Yeah. Their group is pretty select. But I was like, hey, so how's it going? What's happening? I was like just trying to weasel my way in, and I got a little bit of hooking time with them, but not extensively as much as I wanted to. But I was still shy about what I was doing because they are highly experienced rug hookers, and I was just getting back into it, and I didn't feel like my skill was maybe at that level. So I felt a little intimidated just because they are absolutely breathtaking craftspeople, makers that I've ever encountered. I did, yeah, I finished at Concordia. So Concordia is a long master's, so you do 2 years of coursework. So I did my 2 years, and then that summer I had gone to Photo Island, and then your third year is supposed to be this like wild thesis year, do whatever, writing, art creation. And I had a really amazing advisor, and I just was like, I think I have to stay here in Newfoundland for my thesis year. Is that okay? She was like, you do you, Larry. So I I did me, and and I created this significant body of work. Yeah. And then I had to, my lovely partner, I love him so much. Okay, so he drove we piled all of this work, more than what's in the gallery, piled it all in the car. He drove me all the way to Montreal, because I don't drive, drove me all the way to Montreal, went to finish my thesis, drove me all the way back with my artwork to Newfoundland. Yeah. Yeah, I was thinking about that, and I thought a lot about this, and I ended up deciding that I liked a lot of the time to have the anonymity there, but this is why I like also being around my work, so if people have questions, I can address those questions. What I did for the previous exhibition, I had a collection of the short stories with a couple of images, so I had little books lying around in the gallery as well, so people can, if they wanted to spend the time, could go and read and look at a little bit more material. So that's how I integrated that into that. I didn't bring them here because I was like, I'll be there and I can just tell everyone about my stories and I have some photos, so it just kind of made sense in that context. But but I always stand by it. I'll just keep it ever so slightly anonymous if I don't feel, if they're hard things to talk about, and sometimes I don't feel like talking about them. So I always have that like comfort zone of boundary that I'm like, if need be, I can just not have to deal with that. So that's how I approach that. Does that make sense? Yeah, I thought about dyeing some yarns, and the thing about being a material practice person is that every action that you do to modify the material is going to, I'm always thinking about it and how it impacts my work. And in this context, I couldn't really find a way to make that fit, the dyeing process to fit it within the conceptual development of the work. So Briggs Little is just fantastic because A, it's like the only thing that you can find really in Newfoundland, and it comes in like the best colors already. And I was like, unless I can like find a way to dye with Spam, but then I was like, no, right? But it wouldn't make any, if I dyed with like natural dyes or like blackberries or something, I was like, well, blackberries don't really have any meaning in my family, so why would I do it? So that's how I went about it, and just Briggs Little is fantastic. So it felt appropriate considering it was the only material that I could actually find on Photo Island when I started. And I just went with it full throttle. Well, I mean, yeah, I think that absolutely. Yeah, I think what I find mostly fascinating in the way that I approach rock cooking is that I'm like, well, yeah, okay, it's a floor thing, and then it was a wall thing, but I'm just like, let's go sculpturally, and that's what really excites me about it, is that there's a lot of potential beyond just like a flat burlap. So if you go back to the Kleenex bottle, ooh, okay, so Kleenex, for that, the top part, I hooked on aluminum window screen. So with that aluminum, if you bend it, it takes the shape of whatever you bend it in. So it's a pain to hook with, it's like the worst thing, but it is so worthwhile because once you've hooked in it, you can then bend it and form it into these most wild shapes that you could possibly imagine. And it has opened up this incredible potential for what rug cooking can take on as forms. And if you do go to my exhibition, you will notice that I also try to integrate as much as I can different materials that function with my conceptual development for these rugs. I don't think I have an image here, but for my grandpa's on my American side, the green rug, some of the seltzer or the tonic water bottle that's on there, I actually wrapped my Briggs Little yarn in plastic, like plastic bottle material, and then hooked it inside so that it gives it that like plastic bottle shape. So rug hooking has the potential to like expand beyond just like the yarn and the strips. So yeah, I think that would be my biggest suggestion to you, is just explore that. So I can't believe it's not butter. I wanted to convey the weight of the body, and it's not actually body, but yeah, I stuffed it with really heavy blue jeans that didn't fit me anymore, which I was like, oh, that's kind of addresses that thing. For the baby bells, I wanted a weightlessness to them. I stuffed them with, some of them are stuffed with, like it's a mix of like old scraps of clothing and like synthetic material that gives it that puff. It's all about the puff. That's a great question. Well, this was very much linked to domestic spaces and especially kitchen, and I'm just trying to explore a different type of domestic space, so I'm focusing on bathrooms. And as a person who's pretty gender neutral, bathrooms are always one of those things that give me a lot of anxiety. So yeah, that's what I'm doing now, and I'm doing I'm kind of referencing that piece, like every person I've ever slept with, where they embroider all the names of the people they've slept with. I'm doing all the bathrooms I've ever bathed in, so which haven't been that many. I've showered in plenty, but actually bathed, I'd say probably in my life maybe 4 or 5. So I'm recreating the actual bathroom spaces 3-dimensionally, full size, with all of the things that are inside of the bathrooms. And that's been really fun in terms of other materials that I'm exploring into hooking into these burlap